Cover crops like these are amazing in their ability to improve soil health and provide lots of other services. But to do these good things, they need to be planted correctly and managed carefully. And having the right equipment is critical. I'm going to be talking about some innovative cover cropping equipment that we've been developing and dreaming about developing. But let me start off with a story of my first experience planting a winter cover crop in the organic research farm that I started managing several years ago. The soil here was in bad shape and needed lots of cover cropping to turn it around. So when I planted that first cover crop, this is the grain drill that I used. And I remember how good it felt as I pulled that drill back and forth across the field planting the cover crop and thinking about all the good things that I was doing for the soil. Now after I'd planted about half of the field, I figured I'd better go and check to see how much seed was left in the hopper. Well, unfortunately, one side was completely empty, and I had no idea where in the field the seed had run out. Now, I didn't want my first planting to look like I didn't know what I was doing, with big gaps where the weeds would grow. So I reloaded the grain drill with seed and I replanted the whole field again. I've learned a lot about cover crops since then, and I'm now much more comfortable with the various features on standard planters. But I've also come to realize that these planters and a lot of the other tools that we use to manage the cover crops have their limitations and aren't always well suited for the high-value cropping systems that I work in. And I think this is part of the reason that cover crops aren't as widely used as they should be. So the novel system and equipment that I'm going to be focusing on involves growing cover crops on beds in the same row spacing that we use for many of our vegetables. Now there's lots of potential advantages of growing cover crops on beds, and I'll explain some of those after I show you the modified planter that we used to plant that. So this precision belt seeder works really well with round pelleted seeds. And it's been the standard planter for most of the lettuce industry for more than 50 years. It's a great planter because it accurately spaces individual seeds within a row. But we don't need that level of accuracy with a cover crop, and it wouldn't make economic sense to pellet irregularly shaped cover crop seeds. The pelleting process is pretty expensive. So we removed the seed metering units and we added these multi-purpose hoppers that deliver the seed right down to the bed where it's needed. Here we are planting the rye cover crop in 2 lines on 4 beds. And here's the field 9 days after planting. Now, the first potential advantage of cover cropping on beds is that we use about 60 to 70% less seed than with a standard planting arrangement. With a standard cover crop planted, say, with a grain drill, there would be several more seed lines per unit area, and this is important to shade the soil quickly and suppress weeds. But with a bedded cover crop, we manage the weeds differently. So here we are rotary hoeing the cover crop to uproot weeds that aren't as deeply rooted as the cover crop. We then like to follow this with a standard vegetable cultivator about a week later. And this helps to take out remaining weeds that may be in the furrow bottoms or on the bed top and might have been missed by the rotary hoe. The cover crop then fills in the bed top and shades the furrows, giving us a nearly weed-free cover crop that's still extremely productive. Now, if the weather cooperates, we can take out several weed flushes during a single winter, and this really helps to reduce the weed seed bank. When the cover crop needs to be mowed, there are some real benefits to having it on beds rather than having it in a standard on-bedded arrangement. The wheel tracks of the tractor in a standard cover crop push down the cover crop in front of the mower, and this can leave long on-mowed strips through the field that are difficult to incorporate into the soil later. Now, in contrast with a bedded cover crop, the wheels run in the bare furrow bottoms, and this allows us to cut the cover crop into smaller and more uniform pieces and also mow the cover crop closer to the soil surface. Now, another potential benefit to cover cropping on beds is that it allows us to control the growth of the taller cereal component in a legume cereal mixture. For example, with this rye-vetch mixture, the rye starts to flower before the vetch, and we can actually mow the rye seed heads off in the upper canopy to prevent them from setting viable seed, and then let the veg vines get a little bit more light and grow a little longer to potentially fix more nitrogen. Let me now share some ideas of some innovative cover crop management strategies and equipment that I've been dreaming about developing. Earlier this year, I wrote a paper that addresses this complicated question about cover crops and sustainability. And in that paper, I described several different cover cropping strategies, some new ones. Probably the most novel idea involves extracting nitrogen-rich juice from cover crop shoots to use as a liquid fertilizer in subsequent vegetables. You might want to check out that paper and learn some more about that interesting idea. The juicing strategy involves harvesting cover crop shoots from beds using a forage harvester like this. It would actually be pulling a trailer to catch all the harvested shoots, and then they would be processed. And as we've been experimenting with his forage harvester, I've been wondering about another way to use it that doesn't involve juicing. And this idea came to me when we were trying out the mower or the harvester after some broccoli. What really impressed me about it is that it cut the broccoli right at the bed top and then lifted the residue off the bed top, leaving it really clear. The bed top was actually so clear that it looked like you could plant your next vegetable right into it with almost no tillage. So we're going to try modifying the hood of this forage harvester so that the finely chopped material that's pulled off the bed can be channeled back down and into the furrows between the beds, leaving the bed top free of residue. We could then lightly strip till the bed top if we needed to, and then plant our next vegetable and leave the residue in the furrow bottoms as a mulch, where it would decompose slowly and then provide a lot of other benefits. Now, as you've probably figured out, I like Legos. They inspire kids to be creative, and also adults too. And as we develop new tools for cover cropping, I often feel like a kid with a Lego set. It's a lot of fun seeing what you can come up with. So stay tuned as we continue working on innovative cover cropping equipment and strategies. I think these have got a lot of potential to increase cover crop adoption and make the systems that I work in here far more sustainable. Take care.